Now you should be seeing a PowerPoint presentation, neighborhood traffic calming for the Maco Street study area. So thank you, Celeste. As I was saying, my name is David Harding. I'm the traffic engineer here at the City of Greenville, and I'm going to be leading you through this process. Just letting you know that this meeting is being recorded, and after the meeting and once marketing or public relations has had a chance to edit the video, we will get it posted to the public input website so that you or anybody who missed the meeting can view it afterwards and pick up on any information you may have missed or just hear something else, again, that piques your interest. So with that being said, let's get started. So this is the screen that everybody should hopefully be seeing, except for instead of Valerie's name, you should be seeing my name. At some point, we'll get around to fixing that, but here we are. On the right-hand side, it may be a little bit different. It may not be. The right-hand side, you should be able to see the participants and Q&A pane. If you cannot, you should be able to click in the bottom right-hand corner the participants and Q&A buttons, and those should allow those to pop up where you can obviously see the participants who are in the meeting currently, or bring up the Q&A panel and allow you to enter questions. If you do have a question during the presentation, you can type into that box. That's how we're going to track, just to make sure all questions get answered and ultimately posted online to where everybody can see the Q&A that happened during the presentation. I will say a lot of questions typically are answered just during the presentation. So we will, for the most part, wait until the very end to answer any unanswered questions. Celeste will be kind of going through behind the scenes, and as people are typing questions, if she hears that one is addressed during the presentation, she'll just mark it off so that we know that one's already been hit, and the ones remaining we will make sure to address during that portion. Everyone has joined the meeting muted just by default, so if you would like to verbally ask your question, there is a way to do that. You can click the little raise hand button beside your name, and that'll signal to us that you want to ask a question. And if you click it again, it'll disappear. We will call on you when it comes time, saying that, okay, Jane Doe, it's time for your question. And if you would click the unmute button at that time, that'll unmute you, and you can ask your question and then mute yourself when you're done. We or you can click the hand and your hand will go back down. That way, we don't think you have a constant question. We won't keep calling on you. And if you do have another question that arises, you can raise your hand again, and we'll just repeat till all the questions are answered. And then there's the mute and unmute button down at the bottom. So those are the house cleaning kind of topics that we wanted to cover. So now we can get started. This should be what you're seeing now is a map of your study area, your neighborhood that hopefully everybody is very familiar with. If you are able to see it, green dots on the map, which there are some in your neighborhood, indicate where existing speed humps are located. Those were put in, actually I don't have that in front of me when those were put in, but that's just how we track what traffic calming measures we have currently installed throughout the city. And brown dots, which I don't believe you have any in your neighborhood. Brown dots would be where landscape islands or medians would be, which is another type of traffic calming device that we can put in. But that's the map of your study area and the traffic calming devices that you currently have. Again, everybody should have seen this or can see it again via the public input website. So the process, how did we get here? It all starts, a traffic calming process starts where a citizen calls and requests traffic calming, whether that's landscape medians or curb bump outs, speed humps, something. They request that from traffic engineering. We provide them an application to fill out, just get some more information about who they are and where they're located. And from there, we send them a petition. and that individual or group of individuals takes a petition around the neighborhood, getting different citizens within the study area to sign the petition. And that's just how we track to make sure that the neighborhood as a whole is generally in favor and supportive of going into the traffic calming process. So the petition is required to get at least 50% of the address points in the study area to sign the petition. Again, that's just indicating the majority is ready or willing to enter into the traffic calming discussion. And once that is completed, we schedule the kickoff meeting, and that is exactly where we are today. So somebody took it upon themselves to make the request, and whether themselves or with a group of people went around the neighborhood and got at least 50% signatures, and here we are going through the process now. So we're in the kickoff meeting now. Ultimately, after this meeting, we're going to go through a series of steps. The first step that we are going to do as the traffic engineering department, we are going to go out and collect data within the neighborhood. That's where we go and collect traffic volumes. At the same time, that's when we measure and record speeds on different streets, so that we can really document what the traffic is doing in the neighborhood and just have a general good idea of kind of what you experience and why you may have reached out and started the traffic calming process to begin with. So once we have the data, we will share that with the neighborhood, and the planning process begins. That's where we actually, on the map, indicate where we want different traffic calming measures installed, whether that's speed humps, curb bump outs, landscape islands. There's a bunch of different options, and we'll go through that here in a minute. But that's where the plan is prepared, and the neighborhood says, this is what we would like to see. Once that is agreed upon by the neighborhood or individuals from the neighborhood and traffic engineering, we will put it to a vote. And that is a vote by the neighborhood, where the neighborhood actually votes yay or nay to traffic calming devices. And once items are approved, we move in towards the installation phase, and that's where they're actually installed on the streets. So to go into a little more detail about each of those stages. So data collection, that's where we're going to head towards after today, or after tonight. What does that mean, and what do we look for? So we install or place, they're really taped down to the pavement, small devices that measure the number of vehicles, the average speed of those vehicles, and then the 85th percentile, meaning 85% of the vehicles are going that speed or less. It doesn't say all of them, because that might be an extremely high rate of speed, but that's generally considered, that's what we as traffic engineers use to generally classify the speed of the vehicles going through an area. When is the data collected? We do data collection on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursdays of the week during school year. We do not do weekends. We do not do Mondays or Fridays, and we do it during the school year because that is generally considered typical traffic volumes. Weekends, you have either fewer than normal because people just don't go to work in the mornings or evenings. Kids aren't going to school. You have atypical, usually lesser volumes on the weekends, or sometimes Mondays, Fridays, depending on work schedules. Holidays, this Monday is MLK Day, so you just have atypical volumes. And again, school year, when kids are in school, you just have less volume. So those are when we collect the data, and that is what we collect when we do that. All of that, once we get it, put it in a form that's legible, will be shared with the neighborhood so anybody can look at it and review it. After the data collection phase, excuse me, we enter the planning phase. So the data will be presented to the neighborhood, and the study team will start putting together the plans. The study team is made up of volunteers from the neighborhood. It's not me or anybody else in traffic engineering. It is driven by the neighborhood, and we'll post and provide some information to sign up to be a part of the study team. It will be through the public input website, which you all use to register for this meeting tonight. The link is shown on this street. It's thepublicinput.com/Maco Street. And everybody that's attending and registered for this meeting tonight will receive a follow-up email with information on how to sign up to be a part of the study team. The study team is made up of individuals from the neighborhood and not myself or anybody like that, because you are the individuals who will be utilizing and driving through or across the traffic calming measures on a daily basis. I can offer my insight and guidance, but as somebody who's not going to be driving through it daily, I am not the best person for it. I'm not impacted by it as you will be, so that's why we like the neighborhood to drive it. Plus, I might recommend something that the neighbors or the neighborhood just are not a fan of, and we want you to be satisfied with the product that you are going to be left dealing with on a day-to-day basis. Generally speaking, we like to have a good representation or a good representative group from the neighborhood. Ideally, it would be one person from each street, with typically 5 to 6 individuals on the study team. You can do more, you can do less. More, it just becomes a scheduling hassle, herding cats, trying to get everybody together to talk about and figure out what you want to do. Less, you just don't have a good representation from the neighborhood, and what the study team may propose, the majority of the neighborhood might come back and strike it down. So it's up to the neighborhood and up to those volunteers who want and are willing to register for the study team. So with that, I would encourage everybody here who has the ability to sign up to be a part of the study team. Again, it's not a hard and fast. It has to be the people who sign up. It can come and go, but we will use the people who register for online. That will be who we talk to. We can't get the whole neighborhood together to talk about it. We use the study team as kind of the liaison between the neighborhood and myself. So we have a small group of people who are the main point of contact that we can talk to and pass information and questions back and forth to. So with that, since we're talking about the planning phase, what does that mean? What can we use in traffic calming? This is a chart of most of the typical traffic calming measures that are included throughout the city of Greenville. There are some that are not on here that, if requested, we can discuss, and there are some on here that are not allowed. So this is laid out in in 3 columns. As you move from left to right, it gets more complicated to get those identified and installed. For instance, if you wanted speed humps or curb bump outs, all that it takes to get that done is for the study team to identify those locations and get voted in by the neighborhood. That's it. You'll have to have traffic engineering. All of these will require traffic engineering to sign off on it. But that's just really more of a guidance measure, making sure that it meets the minimum requirements. As you move to the right under engineering approval, that will have to kind of go up the chain a little bit further to where the city engineer and traffic engineer will have to offer their approval. Those would be things like traffic circles. We need to make sure that we have enough right of way to put a roundabout in, things of that nature. Even farther to the right would be council approval. Those tend to be more expensive, require more from a maintenance standpoint. So not only, I should back up, the engineering column requires not only engineering to approve it, but the neighborhood also has to vote it in. The items under city council approval in that column, they require not only city council to approve it, but it also has to pass engineering approval and the neighborhood vote. So it's kind of sequential. Everything to to the right requires approval from the columns to the left, if that makes sense. So these are just some of the items that we allow here in the city. I can offer opinions and some facts behind all these to support the selection and kind of guide the process that the study team goes through. But this is just an itemized list of things that we offer and encourage within the city. Some just general notes on some of these. Landscape islands that effectively narrows the travel way for vehicles. They will require the adjacent property owners adjacent to those landscape islands within 30 feet on either direction. On-street parking will be prohibited, and there will be signs indicating, or signs have to be installed indicating that parking is restricted. So we will require this property owner, since they will be directly affected and won't be able to park on the street, they would have to give written permission that they are allowing that in front of their house. Speed humps, as with everything here, we have some minimum requirements that we can convey to you, but speed humps tend to be the most common request. We do have some minimum spacing requirements of we aim for 450 feet, but in no cases do we allow less than 400 feet. Depending on the neighborhood, this may be more important than others. Speed humps do slow down vehicles. They are very effective at that, and they do not discriminate on the type of vehicle. So that includes emergency vehicles. Each speed hump adds approximately 8 seconds of response time to emergency vehicles, police, fire, EMS, whatever that may be. So just keep that in mind as you're selecting and discussing traffic calming measures in your neighborhood. Speed humps are installed with signs. They're installed at either side of the speed hump. Not a big deal for most, but for some property owners, they don't want the signs right behind the curb or edge of pavement in their yard. We don't restrict parking at those locations, but they're just signs indicating that, hey, warning, there's a speed bump here. Speed cushions, they are similar to speed humps, but they have gaps in them that allow larger vehicles to pass over them, or the wheels to pass through those gaps and not have to drive over the speed hump, slowing them down. That comes with pros and cons. They do slow down passenger vehicles, and they do allow emergency vehicles to pass over them without having to slow down like they do for speed humps. However, they do allow all large vehicles to pass over them without slowing down, and that includes delivery vehicles, UPS, Amazon, things of that nature, which tend to be the most frequent flyers when it comes to speeding. They have a job, they have to get them all delivered by the end of the day, and they tend to tear through neighborhoods. And while cushions are effective for passenger vehicles, they do allow some of the large vehicles to continue their speeding habits and without affecting them. So just something to keep in mind. So once the study team has gone through the planning process and selected and laid out a plan that traffic engineering says, yes, it meets all the requirements, we're good to go, and everybody is in agreement, we move towards a vote. In the past, we have mailed out a paper ballot to everybody in the study area, but COVID has enabled us to move in towards the digital realm. So we'll plan to do the vote via the public input website. Notice of the vote and instructions on how to access the vote will still be mailed to all the address points in the area. And for anybody who requests it, we will make available to you a paper ballot. But this will need, you can just call the office and request one, and we'll get it mailed to you, or you can come pick it up. Typically, the voting period lasts between 2 to 3 weeks, just depending on the time of day that it starts. Once the vote is finished, our office tallies all the votes, and we notify the study team what measures passed. Those are voted on individually. So if, say, 10 speed humps or landscape islands are proposed in the study area, and 7 pass and 3 do not, then it's not an all or nothing measure. The 7 that pass will get installed, and the 3 that did not pass, they won't get installed. And that's where the process ends. So each one will be voted on individually and installed or not installed based on the result of that vote. Who gets to vote is anybody 18 years or older with a valid driver's license. So anybody who is legally able to drive and 18 years or older, they can vote on it. And the passing vote is 70% or more. It's not just a simple majority. We want an overwhelming majority, just to prevent any backlash. So that is the voting process. We've had tremendous luck with this. The electronic voting has been going very smoothly, and we do on the regular provide paper ballots to individuals. So don't hesitate to do so if you need to. So once the vote happens and we have some traffic calming measures identified and voted yes, we want to have them, we will get them scheduled for installation. Scheduling, there's not a hard and fast, all devices will be installed within X weeks or X months. It does vary on a variety of factors. Scheduling, we just got done with the holidays. We've had some crews out, so that tends to delay some installations at the start of the year. It depends on how many installations were scheduled before your neighborhood went in and finished their votes. It can be impacted by budget constraints. We have a limited budget per year on how much we can spend on traffic calming measures. Typically, we come in under that budget, but depending on what traffic calming measures are requested by a neighborhood, some are more expensive than others, and they may, if a series of more expensive measures pass a vote, they may have to go into the next fiscal year, just depending on how the budget is looking at that given time. And then, as I'm sure everybody on some level has been experiencing, delivery schedules and availability of materials can also impact things. It's getting better, but we still have to make sure we can get the devices to install them before we can guarantee anything. And timeline for once they start constructing them, that's going to vary depending on what goes in. Typically, speed humps are 1 to 2 days per hump. We have to move crews around to a bunch of different projects throughout the city, so we generally say 1 to 2 days per speed hump. So that is, in a nutshell, the traffic calming process. This again is the public input website that you can access, and again, that starting tomorrow, or depending on when our marketing group gets the video cut up and uploaded. It could be as early as tomorrow. If not, it will be sometime early mid next week that this video will be uploaded to the public input website, as well as schedule, how to register for the study team, and some other information. This is my contact info, so you can always reach me or call the main office, and if not myself or Celeste, somebody will get in touch with you and answer any questions you may have about traffic calming or traffic in general. So that being said, goodness gracious, this is never easy on my machine. Let me get back to the WebEx meeting. And we will answer or see what kind of questions we have. And WebEx does not like this computer. Pardon me while I figure this out yet again. There it is. Okay, and we do have some questions. So I see, Zach, you say Glen Street has a traffic island. Let me see. It looks like that might be just outside the study area, but that's something we can look at and see what that condition is, but thanks for that information. Janine, aside from speed, are you able to collect data where cars do not stop at stop signs? This happens frequently in Nickeltown Road at Alaska Avenue. Unfortunately, that's not something that we can do. That would require somebody to be out there manually watching, and typically if there's somebody out there watching, well, that's going to impact behavior. So if that is an issue, whether at that intersection that you referenced or in general throughout the city, that would be an enforcement issue. You would need to contact the City of Greenville Police Department, and they will coordinate additional presence in that area and try to enforce that. So sorry, I'm personally not able to help you with that, but that's how we address that type of issue. That there's a designated bikeway on Beechwood. Are there any limitations on traffic calming devices that allow for a bike lane way? No. In short, there is not anything. There are no restrictions for bike lanes. We do factor that in. So if we were doing a speed hump at that location, we do ensure that there is adequate space on either in between the edge of the speed hump and either the curb or the edge of pavement to allow a bike to pass adjacent to and not over the speed hump. Curb bump outs, things of that nature, the bike lane would go around it with traffic vehicles. So no, there's nothing, maybe with a couple of exceptions, but those can be discussed if those come up. That's very atypical that we ever run into any issues with that. But that's a very good question and not one that I get often. So thank you for thinking through things thoroughly. Great info. Thank you for your time. Thank you all for joining. This is so far been a good group. Can stop signs be added? There are a couple locations in the neighborhood that a four-way can make the interchanges safer. So this is a very common question, so common that we have a hidden slide here at the end to address it. The short answer is no. Stop signs, we follow federal highway requirements called the MUTCE, and stop signs require what's called a warrant in order to install them. And typically where stop signs are not warranted, they actually have unintended consequences. So stop signs, obviously, they only slow traffic where the stop signs are actually located. Where they are not genuinely warranted, vehicles, they understand that, well, this is kind of silly for a stop sign to be here, especially frequent flyers, and they inevitably end up running the stop sign because it's not warranted, and that in itself creates more of a dangerous situation. So no, for these reasons listed on this screen, we do not implement all stops as part of this traffic calming process. If there's a more specific issue that we can potentially look at and discuss, by all means, please reach out to me and we can talk about it. But no, in general, we do not allow stop signs to be considered as part of this process. Can they be removed and replaced by speed humps? That is an interesting question. Janine, do you have the ability do you have a microphone where you could kind of offer some more insight into that? And Courtney, no, that would not. We would make sure the data collection devices are outside of where vehicles would park. In worst case, if cars just did park over them, we would, in that case, we would go back out and do another collection to correct that. It would be readily apparent. It would show cars going extremely slow because they would skew the average. So can't unmute without leaving and returning. Okay. Okay. Well, short answer would probably be no. Stop signs and removing them would generally not be a part of the traffic calming process. I would be curious to talk to you in a little more detail about that. So if you wouldn't mind tomorrow, next week, at some point, giving me a call and we can talk about it. There may be some extenuating circumstances that may allow us to do something. That is an atypical request, so that just makes me want to kind of pick at that one a little bit more before I just give you a flat answer. So on that note, again, this will be available on the website, so you don't have to hurry up and jot this down. But again, that's my contact information, and you know where we are, so feel free to give me a call or email, and we can set up a time to either meet out there or just talk on the phone. Do you know where specifically? I will know exactly where they're going to be, but you all will not. That is intentional. We have had cases in the past where citizens, in an effort to really make it obvious that traffic calming is needed, they will themselves drive over the devices frequently and rather quickly, trying to skew the data. So in response to that, we do it at a time and location of our choosing. They are strategically placed. We're not going to put it right behind a stop sign because that in itself is just a poor location to try to collect data. But no, we will not make it public where and when those are going to be placed. But yes, we will look at the area, identify where the devices should be placed, and put them out there. If for any reason, when the data map is prepared and provided to you, if you see any issues, we can always discuss. We have had some of those where the residents just see something that we cannot see from our point of view, and we go back out there and get some additional data. So we generally hit the nail on the head with the rare omission, and in those cases, we can always rectify it. So good question, and no, we're going to keep that one a secret. They're not readily obvious. They are fairly small. So generally, you would not know what it is unless you were one of us and knew it. Now, as of this meeting, y'all may see it at some point in time and say, oh, that's probably what that is. But it's not something that a speeding motorist is going to see and suddenly slow down. It does not alarm anybody driving through the area. They are pretty incognito and fly under the radar, under the car, pun intended. Okay. Any other questions? Some good back and forth thus far, so I do appreciate everybody taking time out of their evening. Hopefully everybody stayed dry. Sounds like it's still raining out there, but hopefully the worst is behind us. And I guess, seeing no other questions, we can adjourn the meeting. Again, all of this will be made available to you online here in the coming days. And don't hesitate to reach out with any questions. One more plug, please. I strongly encourage those willing and able, go to the public input website after this and register to be a part of the study team. It's not a significant time investment. It's really what you make of it. But the process cannot go forward if the neighborhood doesn't get some members of the community to create the study team and kind of drive the process. We are here to support you. We'll give you whatever tools, information, feedback you need. But being neighborhood members, we do look to you to drive the process and ultimately figure out what you want in your neighborhood. So please, at least a few people go to the Public Input website and register. Once we have people registered, we will connect everybody so that you know who's on the study team, and you can take it from there. But seeing no further questions, and Celeste just let me know that the link is active and you can, as of right this moment, start registering to be a part of the study team. So thank you, Celeste. And with that, I guess everybody have a good evening, and we will talk here soon. Thank you. Have a good night.